seems to be a thread here of all things we can't remember.
It's Alan from DPD.
I think you'll find there's already one 6x9 installed sort of off-centre.
Is that because the other one was stolen?
And then out the back of his van, he was quietly selling RainX kits, and I probably bought 5 because I'm a massive sucker. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second podcast from the Pro Detailer Magazine team. This week, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. First and foremost, we're going to be looking at coming back to work after lockdown and the sort of sensible, common sense precautions that we can take to make working safe for us, for our families, and for our customers. And hopefully we'll be able to add some sort of constructive advice for that. Then we're going to take a little wander through what we like to do to our cars in summer, or rather in preparation for summer. Everybody talks about winter preps, but what about summer preps? Can we make that a thing? And finally, we're going to just touch on what we have been doing personally on our cars during lockdown, just to keep our eye in and just to enjoy ourselves detailing. So I'm going to turn to our hero, James Keeley.
Hello.
And ask him what sort of precautions are sensible to take when you're coming back, if you're a valeter or a detailer, and you're coming back to work.
Well, I think we've seen a massive split in the industry where there have been, I'd say, probably half. Do you think?
Yeah.
Half of detailer valeters
Depends what you're going to say, really. Half of what?
I think half of the industry have carried on working.
I think some people took a very brief break and then realised that they couldn't or wouldn't for whatever reason.
Yeah, and we saw, I mean, certainly within PVD, the trade association that we run, we saw a definite split of people who were, absolute campaigners for stay at home, which, we believe was the correct thing to do, still do. And then the other half who physically couldn't.
Yeah, and not that we were blaming those who physically couldn't. There's a spectrum, and also it's a judgment. If you say I absolutely can't, for some people they're willing to go to sort of more strain, if you like, than others. But then it's a personal decision.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously at the very beginning the financial situation was beige, to say the least. It was very patchy. We weren't sure what was going to happen. And it was kind of too little too late for a lot of guys. I know there's quite a few businesses that have closed down or chosen a different career path.
I don't know how many actually have this early on. I think long term or medium term, we're definitely going to see a...
I don't think we saw many within PVD, but I know that there's a few of the smaller outfits sort of on the skirt of the industry.
Yeah, certainly if you'd only just started, there is no government support for you. If you're kind of through your first year, which is a requirement for entry into the trade association anyway, you at least would, fewer people fell through the gaps.
And accounting was a massive issue as well. I mean, we know that a lot of smaller businesses run cash in hand or cash only operations, and bookkeeping isn't, the most important thing on their agenda, unfortunately. When the government help came around, it really benefited those who
were more diligent.
Yeah, they did it by the book.
Yeah. I mean, the time of year is obviously going to be a massive problem for most of them, because a lot of this trade are treading water over winter, and it was around that sort of March time that people are starting to come back, start to get the income boost they need to make sure it's a viable business going forward, and that just didn't materialise.
Yes.
And with no instant income from the grant for the rate relief scheme and the self-employment scheme taking best part of 2 months to come in, then people just didn't have a choice but to scrap it and do something else, even if it's only temporary. I think you'll see a lot of these people popping back up once everything's back to normal, or as back to normal as it's going to be. But while there's still this uncertainty out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had airline pilots who'd been furloughed or left and were working for Amazon fulfillment. So they're not going to live on fulfillment for the rest of their life. They're going to go back to being airline pilots, hopefully, at some point. And that was the one thing that a member was talking to me about, saying, well, at least it'll clear out the industry a bit in a way of pruning the weak, if you like. But actually, if you think back to the last recession, what happened when a lot of people came unemployed from other jobs is that they went into valeting detailing because the entry is very low in terms of the cost, in terms of the skill level, in terms of the prerequisites.
I think it's very circular. You're always going to get people coming in, leaving the industry. You're always going to have a hovering of around the same amount of people doing this.
And to be fair, quite a lot of the successful detailers that I know do have, I call it kind of secondary employment or backup jobs. So a couple I know who are, for example, truck drivers who, when it goes quiet in winter, they'll just go out and drive the trucks. And some who actually structure their business around taking a 3-month sabbatical during the winter, and they either go off on holiday or go and do a different job, which is, I suppose, catering for the variances in demand in our industry.
I think another thing that hit us quite hard is the tail end of 2019 was exceptionally quiet for the industry. Yeah. It's probably the worst winter we've had since the recession. And I know a lot of...
It sounds like a Russian novel. Yes, it was the worst winter since the recession.
It was a dark,
but
with
a Russian accent instead.
But yeah, it was unusually quiet last year. The tail end of 2019 was tough. And I think that the knock-on effect of that leading straight into the outbreak, I think that is what crippled a lot of the smaller businesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's also worth saying, well, the point that we were making about those who didn't keep the records and might have done a little bit too much cash and hand work, it's also affected perfectly legitimate business owners who have paid themselves in dividends rather than through conventional PAYE systems, or those also have just paid back their directors' loans, because that doesn't count as income in terms of getting support of the government. So those who fell through the gaps didn't all fall through the gaps due to slightly casual accounting. A lot of it was perfectly legitimate. They just weren't covered.
But like I was saying, it was maybe a short-term deficit from that point of view. They didn't get as much help right now, but they're probably about even for the score with what they've saved over the years anyway. So it's not like they've taken out of their pockets, just been put into their pockets at a different time.
Yeah.
I'm speaking as one of those who does pay themselves as part in dividends.
Yeah.
It's just how accountants set up the business to work.
I suppose. And you save, 4% or so on paying by dividend as opposed
Something
to
like that,
income. Yeah. So it does make a bit of a difference. Also, we were saying that the kind of the late 2019 wasn't great, but I also look for the long-term ones, because we've lost in the last couple of years, we've lost some very established businesses, and I think that's more to do with year on year of tough times. I mean, the last good year all round, I think, was 2016. From my position of communicating with members over since 2012, I think 15-16 was not bad, but 17 wasn't great.
I was childless then. I had a Mini Cooper S. Good times.
Well, that's why you didn't have a child, because
Just for clarity, love my son. Great.
It takes a female and a male to produce a child.
Actually, yeah, it was April 2016 when you last smiled.
Did you?
Yeah, no, you last smiled.
Oh, me?
I smile the whole time, but that's most of the drugs.
Was it a smile or was it just gas?
Gas relief.
But as far as returning to work, I think there's going to be a real sort of staggered approach to this now. I think the guys that have already been working will maintain what they've been doing so far. And I think that there is an alarming lack of urgency to what their processes now include. We know through the trainings and the assessments that we've done, we know that PPE has been way down the list in importance.
Yeah, and chemical safety, chemical knowledge, the number of people who don't sort of understand the pH system and the relevance of it.
But for those, if you consider that there are professional detailers out there that have that view on the job, if you then consider asking them to wear PPE for something they can't see, maybe don't necessarily believe all the hype, it's tricky. I mean, it's difficult to, That is the doorbell. I'm not sure why we've got a doorbell in the studio.
It's our special mystery guest.
It's Alan from DPD.
Well, strangely we say that, but actually that is PPE being delivered that I ordered earlier in the week, as it happens, because we've been stocking up. So in terms of practical advice, one thing we've been working on, and PVD members have access to it, but anyone can research and develop it internet is creating a risk assessment specifically to take into account COVID-19 risks. The other elements to consider, PPE, some of it's difficult to get hold of at the moment, but it's not impossible. Keep searching. It's worth having, even if you can't get full respirator qualified face masks and stuff. Anything can potentially reduce the risks.
There is one thing to note about that, though. The deficit of stock, generally, from what I've seen, because I've done a lot of research in this over the last few weeks, only applies to disposable PPE. So if we look at stuff like the masks, we know that FFP3 or N95 or N100 is kind of the level we want to be looking at from our point of view as detailers and valeters.
Yeah.
That's what we should be using anyway.
Regardless of COVID. Yeah.
For the reusable ones, like the 3M
Yeah,
ones, stuff like that, they're all in stock.
You say that.
Yeah.
I was looking for a set of filters for both my 3M mask and the blue. There's a Screwfix one I use as well.
Yeah.
A blue mask, and just can't find them anywhere.
Filters.
Yeah, well, actually, no, sorry. I can find the filters for the blue one on eBay, currently retailing around about, well, when I looked a couple of weeks ago, retailing for around about £90. There should be about 13.
So I had a look on Screwfix again 2 days ago, and you can buy the semi-disposable. So it's the 3M ones that are N95. They're actually P3, which is equivalent to N100, and they are vapor and particle filter. So you can use them for solvents, which is ideal for valeters, detailers. They had those in stock, and they were the same price that I paid 2 years ago. So I think for the disposable components, like the filters that go onto the respirator ones, the prices have been hiked up. But for the ones that are semi-disposable, there's plentiful stock out there if you go and look for it.
I think the key is to look for it, and also the normal places that you get it might not necessarily have it, but look around, because it's not just our trade that will have those in. Think about gloves as well in terms of PPE, always important. Another really, really important thing is, and it should kind of come into play when you're putting your risk assessment together, is thinking ahead. So you've got to work out ways to minimise customer contact and minimise contact if you employ somebody or are an employee in a multi-person sort of detailing environment, and thinking ahead, and little things like send an email out to your customer before they attend in terms of telling them the procedure for dropping off the car, dropping off the key, put some things in place. And we've got some I know who are saying, right, drop the car, we're going to wait for 2 days before we work on it, and then after we work on it, we're going to leave it for 2 days before you're allowed to come and pick it up. And that's kind of a fairly reliable way, if you don't mind having, say, a car on the premises for 6 days, of doing it. And that works when there's a lower turnover of vehicles. But there are other things you can put in place simply if you think of all high contact areas. So once you've done a car and you're happy with it, go over primary controls, door handles, touch points with disinfectant, just as a final touch is a nice little bit. And also think about the key itself. You know, there are sometimes you can give the key a wipe over, that will help. And, you know, avoid contact. I know it's good to shake hands with your customers, or some might even be at a kind of hugging stage. But obviously that is completely off the menu, and you need to make sure that they know that before they turn up, so you don't end up being chased around the yard by a slightly particularly...
Yeah, I mean, you have to assess your customers before you try the foot touch shake, because they might just think you're kicking them.
Yes.
And it's not good for repeat.
That only works in certain parts of the country, yeah.
Yeah. Aye, works up north. The other thing as well is as with regard to planning ahead, there are loads of little things that people seem to overlook within this whole sort of let's call it a crisis, shall we?
Yeah.
Fuel. You know, if you're out on the road every day, don't put a tenner in the van. Fill it. If you've got to go and touch a fuel pump.
Especially when it's 99p a litre at the moment.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We just have high fives all around for that. Thank you,
Yes. Just for reference, if you head up to Morrison's in Stoke-on-Trent, it's currently about £1.3 for diesel.
Do you get a free pie with it?
Aye. No, oat cake in Stoke-on-Trent. Oat cake, chap. You're art.
You go to your local pub and get a 70p pint, I would imagine, and all.
But yeah, you know, fill the van with fuel. And then you're only
well, fill the fuel tank.
Yeah.
Not the van, because no. Say that. I've seen a Mercedes Sprinter that's had a diesel tank in the back of it that's leaked. It's not easy to clean out.
It gives you a headache after a bit.
But yeah, if, you know, it's instead of making 6-7 trips to a fuel station a fortnight, make one.
Yeah.
You know, because if you think about high contact areas, you know, we're all avoiding going shopping as much as we can, and we're avoiding seeing friends and family as much as we can.
I do that anyway, to be fair.
You're touching a fuel pump that potentially 300-400 people a day have touched.
See, I've thought about this, and the best way around that is just to hold the pump straight up in the air and squeeze it a few times. Let the petrol run down. Don't do this, really. I'm joking. You're all looking at me as if I was actually doing
I just think we'd have to put my fag out first.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. You need the heat to really get it active.
Heat kills it. I've heard it. True.
Yeah. Heat kills everything. Yeah, hot enough.
Including the family.
Like that, you know, planning ahead for your journeys, your maintenance and stuff. Make sure your vehicles are in good condition. You know, the RAC have seen a massive spike, huge spike in breakdowns since the MOT rules brought in.
Although less since Bert stopped driving Subarus around.
This is true.
It's taken a big hit to the share price.
Their profits have doubled for 2020. But, you know, I've got a friend up north who runs an MOT station. And obviously for him, he's been open from day one for you know, frontline workers to make sure their cars are roadworthy, tyres, servicing. He shared a post the other day that, you know, because people don't require an MOT now because of the brake, they're deliberately avoiding getting an MOT, like you.
I'm not
because
deliberately
they know
avoiding.
their cars aren't roadworthy.
No, the reason I'm not getting MOT is if I go in there and take up 20 minutes of an MOT tester's time, plus the hour or so it'll take for him to recover from the joy of touching a 25-year-old Audi. You know, think of the number of nurses and road sweepers who could have their vehicles looked after in that time. I mean, I'm just doing it for the greater good.
It was great. It was great for us. Our van went back off lease a little while ago, and they needed they kept on asking us before. Oh, we need to get the MOT done before we get it back. You know, we need to sell it on and make money off of it. And the MOT ran out on the day after the
lockdown requirement.
The lockdown. And I was like, oh, well, you'll be fine until June. You crack on.
But it's you know, maintenance on the vehicle. Make sure your work vans are in good order. You know, if you don't want to go and get an MOT, at least make some basic checks on it before you set out on a journey. If you're some of these detailers that we know cover areas of 40, 50, 60 miles.
Yeah.
You know, if you're at the furthest point away and something happens on the van, there isn't an endless list of people that can come and help you anymore.
No, and those that do are taking a risk in order to do it. You know, if you call out the AA, you're taking it away from potentially, I don't know, an emergency fix on an ambulance or something like that. So
or you.
Or me.
Stuck at the top of the road.
Yeah, but I quite like breaking down. I've done so much of it.
The emergency sandwiches, the emergency services, do they have AA cover?
I don't know how they work.
I'd assume they're more centralised than that.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. If you've got, like, God knows how many tens of thousands of emergency vehicles out there, I can't believe that there's, like, a seventh emergency service specifically for emergency vehicles.
I think they actually just recover them back to the maintenance depot.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But either way, you know, the size of the AA, you're taking up a low loader.
I'm taking up specifically a 12-ton low loader as happened. Last time I broke down, they ran out of recovery trucks, so they had to bring a delivery vehicle, covered 12-ton delivery truck that was McLaren branded, because its normal day job is McLaren, but on the weekends the drivers use it as backup recoveries. So, you know, it's used to having supercars in the back of it, and so I think having my car in there, just like my God, you know, I thought.
I'm actually surprised with the breakdown rate of McLaren's. There was one available to take your car. I think they just want a continuous shuttle service.
And it was at this point the decision was made to take legal action. No, I think McLaren's are very reliable cars in comparison to.
Well, the McLaren F1 was a very reliable car because of the engine came from
a BMW. Is that what
that's
you
right?
said?
Yeah.
Is that an
no,
M60 or is it an M61 engine?
Pass.
Okay, well, this is pretty seminal.
I'm pretty sure it's
here.
an M60 that was
the V12
developed. Yeah.
See, this is a scary thing. I knew nothing about BMW engine codes until I met James and started working together with him about a year and a bit ago, 2 years ago probably. And now
you still know nothing about BMW engine codes.
Well, I'm pretty sure I know the code to the McLaren F1, which is, I suppose you could argue, is McLaren knowledge rather than BMW knowledge, which is sort of less shameful.
But that's mainly because when you went out to buy the Audi,
yes,
you toyed with the idea of buying the better car and decided not to.
Well, Subaru don't make a big saloon, unfortunately. They only work in mid-sized vehicles. But no, you're right. The reason I had the option of an S-Class, as in old school, it's not that I was to the manor born, but just like S-Class, 7 Series or A8. And the A8 was the only one which had a decent towing system and could take 2,000 400 kilos, whereas the equivalent S-Class didn't have a tow knob that could be fitted to it, and the equivalent 7 Series was something like 1,700 kilos, which is pointless. The only thing you can do with that is like take a little trailer or a little caravan.
That's because the people who bought a 7 Series new had a man who went and towed things for them.
Yeah, elitist. They're not my sort, really.
They had a chap.
Yeah.
Call the towing chap. Get him to go and collect the horse.
Get the horse. Yes. Well, they probably had a Range Rover for the horse, but Audi people are much more grounded and sensible than.
Not Bert from Gloucestershire who wants to tow
a
a trailer full of crud to the tip.
Look, there's a lot to be said for mushroom compost, particularly this time of year. Keeps you warm at night.
Yeah, we're back onto Audi's and BMWs again.
We are. There is a risk of this. So let's move the topic on and talk about summer prep for cars from a detailing point of view. So I'm going to fly this one over at James. What do you do to your special four-wheel friend in time for summer fun?
Well, the first thing is make sure they all work, because that's usually my problem.
And then Christmas arrives.
They all make trips successfully, but it's the space between the trips that causes me heartache. I never realised. I never thought the day would come where an E60 might run out of bongs. But yeah, for me, it's always been glass. I'm a real stickler for.
Is that the glass in the rear boot that you have to take out along with the rest of the rear boot because all the electrics on the E60 Beamer seem to go through a little tiny panel and get snapped off on the rear boot of an Estate 5 Series?
I mean, that's a low blow.
Well, no, it's relatively high. For you, it's almost head height.
There we go, short jokes already. No, I mean, it's. I think ever since what was it? The first glass coating I ever used was G-Technic G1, I think. Is it G1?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's probably RainX, to be fair.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah,
RainX,
yeah. I mean, RainX was the first.
There's one that magically comes with every single shed you buy from Homebase. You put it up, and suddenly there's a RainX bottle in the corner and a half-used bottle of teacup.
I think the first bottle of RainX I bought was still marketed by Shell.
I got mine from Autoglass when my windscreen was replaced in 2002, and I asked him what he used, and he said, I swear by RainX, and I believed him because I thought he's objective. And then out the back of his van, he was quietly selling RainX kits, and I probably bought 5 because I'm a massive sucker.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Oral-B. That's because they got boxes of it under the desk.
Unfortunately, the box is also filled with pound coins.
Oh, God.
Well, the weird thing is, on those adverts, the dentists are always terribly good looking, and every time I've been to the dentist, it's been an old man with halitosis.
One of them was called Dr. Utker, and I wondered how he managed to fix teeth and make pizzas at the same time.
He was a multi-talented man. Mr. Crunch.
But yeah, RainX was the first one. That was back in the days where I used to enjoy detailing cars. I used to go out every weekend.
Hang on a second, I'm just going to go get my violin.
It used to be I think that was even pre-clay bar days for me. So that was back in the super
Back when you're still using a bit of pumice.
Yeah, a bit of pumice.
Well, this is just it. How did you get into... Because James has got a very multifarious car rubbing career, ranging from dealerships to running a team, I believe, and then obviously setting up shop with a proper high-end detailing bay up in Cheshire. What actually kind of got you into touching cars?
Internet. So for me...
is that where you first saw a car?
Well, cars had wooden wheels when I first started detailing. We used to have tinnet varnish and some 80 grit.
Have you tried SRP on a horse? It doesn't bloody like it.
But no, I think so. For me, it's the thing is, well, you know my opinion on the valeting and detailing divide. It is literally a turn of phrase. It's not a. There is no difference, in my opinion.
I think it's a whole topic for a podcast, but I generally speaking, agree. It's a very difficult one to call.
But for me, it was sort of when the car forums first sort of started going. I think the first one, I'm going to say quite quietly, the first one that I was part of was one called Rover Tech. And that was, I know.
So imaginary.
Hang on, James. You say that quietly as if humble, but you were getting terribly excited talking about a Tomcat, which is some sort of Rover 400.
No. He was saying it quietly because all the Rover enthusiasts will get startled and drop their tea if you say it too loud. They're only used to Radio 3.
Well, at least there'll be lots of Volvos for the professional validers and detailers to be clearing tea stains out of. Now that Rovers have gone, they've all moved into Volvos.
Ah, well, the Rover 75 is making a resurgence if you look on the anyway, let's not get into Rovers.
You mean it's making a surge?
It's a good idea. Never get into a Rover.
but for me, the car forums were where people started talking about it. And for me, from a valeting background, it was all, I just need a product that does this quickly. Where can I get it? And then it was sort of all clay bar. And I remember the first time I ever used a clay bar, I took the whole clay bar out of the packet and I used it like a bar of soap on the car.
How did that go for you then?
Well, it worked, but I used an entire clay bar to do one car.
Did you lube up properly? Or
No. It was funnily enough, it was the Maguire's kit, which back then was about 40 quid because it was the only one you could get hold of.
Yeah.
And that was back in the days where I think I'd grown up using Autoglim because my dad had various fleet cars and stuff that came with Autoglim in the boot, and Maguire's clay bar appeared. It was like, oh, Maguire's, and then I went and got the what was it called? What was the 3-stage? Was it mirror?
Oh,
mirror
no,
glaze, crystal glaze.
Oh, that's going with the red bottles.
Yeah,
That was sort of the burgundy bottles. Yeah. I can't remember.
Oh, somebody Google it while we're talking.
There seems to be a thread here of all things we can't remember.
So for me, that was it was the car forums that kicked it off.
Yeah.
But that was
It was Crystal something, wasn't it?
yeah. Was it crystal?
I don't know. You guys are much older than
Crystal
me.
Maze? No,
Crystal
that's
glaze?
No, that was.
Well, so that was sort of back then for me. Summer prep would be, some sort of silicon resin polish, as in SRP, as in super resin polish, every weekend. And then we started messing around with waxes and stuff. But summertime, we'd hammer it. We'd really hammer it. We'd wash the cars every weekend. A few of my friends come around. My friend Nick had the Tomcat Turbo. I had a 216 GTI. My other friend had a Cavalier SRI. We're going way back now.
Yeah.
So, Saturday, we'd be around my parents' house. We'd have all the Autoglim stuff out. Brand new Hydroflexi blades because they were a brand new thing then. It's Deep Crystal.
Deep Crystal. I don't remember it as Deep Crystal. I don't know if they've changed that.
Summertime was RainX, silicon resin polish, and then a wax on top, and bumper treatments. Do you remember when we used to have to
Let's say, what about for the
Back
car?
to black. Yeah.
What about for what?
What about for the car?
Yeah, have a nice wax.
Just a night out before we go up club.
In the summertime, so one of my Rover 216 GTIs was a 5-door, and that had grey plastic bumpers, and they were like chalk. I mean, the car must have been, what was it? It was a K-Reg 93.
92 K-Reg.
92, and this must have been 2001. So what's that, 9 years? 9 years, it seems new. The cars I'm driving now are older than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, 9-year-old with grey plastic bumpers. So in the summertime, we would get through litres of bumper snot from Autoglim.
That is a thing. I did just
You worked at MG though, didn't it?
No.
Was it MG or Rover you worked at?
No, it's Aston Martin. Same principle.
No, I worked next door. I worked at Renault.
I thought you worked within the dealership.
No. I worked at Lookers Renault.
And that was next door to
which was next door to Lookers MG.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just as the MGF was the only car propping up the brand.
Yes, I know. I had two of them.
Yes.
It would have been the TF by then, I guess.
Yeah, so that was like right towards the end. It was literally propping. In fact, I think the dealership actually closed while I was still working at Renault. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's always been, protecting or waxing the front end of the car because it always gets hammered in flies. And again, we mentioned it in the last podcast, windscreen sealants. I have to have it now. It has been known that I have put a glass sealant on a courtesy car when I've had it. So when Danny's 325 Compact got written off, we were given a new 320D M Sport.
Which you rather liked, I seem to
remember.
remember.
I loved it.
Yes.
2 years ago, 2018, 2017. Awesome car. First thing I did was put a glass sealant on the windscreen, and we had that for like 7 weeks. So it made
Don't they
sense.
come with Pilkington from new?
No. I don't think any new car comes with a
Alfa does. Alfa Romeo's always had Pilkington.
What, windscreens?
Yeah.
I've never seen them with a hydrophobic windscreen. I've seen
Well, yeah, because they get the heat
Evoques.
treatment from the factory.
I've never seen it on a windscreen. I'm not saying it's not true. I've just never seen it. Evoques like.
I'm
JLR
talking from my
car.
experience of Alfa Romeos, which is a 147. That could have just been oil mist that came out of the engine bay, giving it a fantastically hydrophobic effect.
You do like dual fuel cars, don't you?
It's not really a fuel if it goes on your windscreen. It's,
And in fairness, it didn't come out of the engine, wasn't it the Celly-speed transmission that had to be rebuilt on your driveway at night?
yes, by one of the guys who designed the gearbox, and still, after taking it apart and putting in a new one with it not working, couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And
So
people take the piss out of me.
I don't know. What's your go-to, Ian, for summer prep?
Summer prep, I mean, beyond the usual slapping a decent coat of wax on there before we get started, it's generally around the wheels for me. More as I suppose, not so much going into summer, but coming out of winter. It's taking the wheels off, taking all the crud that's built up over the winter in the arches, cleaning off the barrels, giving them a decent coating, and sticking them back on ready for summer.
I do tend to find the brake dust like a real big problem in the summertime.
In the summer, yeah, you don't find it so much over the winter. I don't know if that's a heat issue, frankly. Or
It's wet roads as well, isn't it? So if the roads are constantly wet, I suppose you're washing a lot.
You don't bother braking, so
But that's right. Yeah, you go
just
for
power through.
Yeah.
diff lock initiate. Very Bert's case.
Don't-
I was about to say, I'm the only one here who's actually got a driver control differential on any vehicle.
How's that going?
The DCCD on the Scoob is working perfectly.
Weren't you shopping for gearboxes the other day?
Yeah, because I want 550 horsepower and the 5-speed won't take it. So I need the 6-speed, but I really want a 6-speed with DCCD and long ratio, which means that I need an...
I'd be more worried about the chassis taking it. I've seen the amount of rot on it.
No, the chassis is fine. It's got everything braced, upper and lower, front and rear. It's got even a carbon fibre Z brace in the rear seats, which is very cool.
A carbon fibre Z brace in the rear seats.
Yeah, I can see the want. So basically,
That's like telling somebody you've got titanium thread in your sock.
I've got no, it's stainless in my leg. But it's well braced. It's well braced.
So
but,
why would you have a carbon fibre brace in the seat?
No, it's so if you imagine the back seats on the B4.
I'd rather not.
Okay, well take the back seats out. Okay, and then normally it has two metal rods that go up, kind of divide the gap between the boot and the rear area into thirds. But you can replace those two metal things. Very rare. There are only 4 of them cast in the UK. With a massive, great carbon fibre plate, which increases sort of torsional rigidity. Anyway,
So this is basically a parcel shelf support.
no.
Does it go between the parcel shelf and the floor?
Yes.
Okay.
It's for when the 6x9s get installed on the 15 mil thick
I think
MDF
you'll find
shelf.
there's already one 6x9 installed sort of off centre.
Is that because the other one was stolen?
No, it's because the random sub that the previous owner put in only had 3 channels.
And I think you'll find the true...
Oh, Subaru owners never change.
I think you'll find the technical phrase is actually a 6x9. That's how good they are.
Oh, yeah. Sony X-Plod for the win.
No, JBL GTO, and you will never change my mind.
Actually, I think I've got an Infinity 3-way and I rather like
I
it.
think you were pretty good, actually.
Infinity
to be
Kappa.
fair, when I was early 20s, I managed to roll my Fiesta going about 65.
Is that the one that you fell out of?
Either one I came out of the window of.
And then you said seatbelts were safe.
Well, apparently not, because you should have seen where the roof would have finished up around about shoulder height for me.
Were you sober with that one?
Yeah, I was. What do you mean with that one? Insinuating something.
Yes.
No, I remember the entire car was trashed, but the only thing that survived it were my Infinity 6x9s, which flew out of the car and landed about 100 feet down the road. No, my friend who was following in his Fiesta did. When I picked them up for me, it was his first thing he did before he came to see if I was all right. So, man, I got your 6x9, you sorted, don't worry about it.
Well, funny, I've got a 6x9 related car accident story. My first 306 that got attacked by a tree at about 65, 70 miles an hour.
Dangerous, you got to watch out for
They're
those.
bloody lethal. And this was at near Chippenham on Derry Hill. Big shout out to the tree at Derry Hill that nearly killed me. And it's killed many other people, just not me. I basically hit a tree, ended up in a field unconscious. The airbags, I woke up after the accident and then the airbags went off. So the only injury I had were burns from the airbags that went off probably 3 or 4 minutes after the impact, which is good.
Sure, it wasn't just the ambulance staff punching you for stupidity.
No, I was hidden in a field. It took a network railman, and this is one of those things I think you get on BBC Radio 2 or 4 where you get to thank somebody who you never knew, but there was a man in a network rail transit van who was the only one who could see down into the field in the middle of the night on a Wednesday night, May the 15th, 2005, I think it was. And he spotted me and he came along and said his best mate had a car accident here 10 years ago. Anyway, it's a long and tragic story, but the long and the short of it is the following day I turned up to kind of collect bits off the car. And bear in mind, the head unit had come out of the car through the rear window. I had an MDF.
Did you have a volume up impression on your forehead?
Well, no, I had an acoustic parcel shelf, which is 18mm MDF, really thick thing. And out of that, my overnight bag had gone through the rear window, 100 yards out the back of the car. And inside a padded camera bag, which was wrapped in cloves, I had a Fujifilm S5000, my favourite camera at the time, and it had broken from the shock despite all that insulation. But the long and the short is when I got back the following day, there were these little quad bike wheel marks going to the car and back from the car, and my 6x9s Infinity Kappa 3-ways were missing. 2 weeks later, just outside Andover, somebody was selling the exact set that came out of my car because the two little tweeters were loose on my one and they were loose on the one that was sold. And I went there, knocked on the door and said, "Can I have mine back? You got these from from a black 306 in a field at Derry Hill." And he gave them back and shut the door in my face. So, yeah, theft doesn't work.
So what's your summer prep, Bert?
I like to focus on paint protection. So in the winter, I use a something polymer based. I don't do ceramic coatings myself because I'm too old.
This is.
You are the youngest one out of the three of us, I'd like to point out.
Yes, but I was born 40, so technically I'm just waiting for God right now.
You don't look the youngest either. So
no.
We've actually had this in a restaurant before.
Yes, where everybody guesses my age at 45.
Even Rich, who is the wrong age of 39, is 39.
Yeah.
He looks younger than you. And me, actually, to be fair.
And yeah, but that's just because he's short. They're presumably still growing. Yeah. No,
this is all very dependent on
having vision.
What we have done to your bonnet and front end anyway, because a lot of the time you have bits of masking tape and drawings and writing and.
Yeah, it's not because I have a child who likes to paint my car. It's because
you got three.
I got 3 adults who steal my car for training sessions. With
we're not going to do on a good one.
No, they never do. And so the car is a mismatch of different. I think I had about 3 different types of ceramic coating on it on different panels, but I didn't know anywhere where they were. So no, my cars are never pretty, or in fact well detailed. But it's always a polymer coating.
That's how you know you're a true detailer.
Yeah, well, a mechanic's car's always falling apart. Just ask James. Yeah, it was. I know it was a bit low. Polymer coatings at winter, and then in summer I do like to do my car on a weekend. I find it therapeutic. I don't do it to have a clean car. I do it because it's fun. And once you've caressed the curves of Fujitsu Heavy Industries' finest on a Sunday morning, frankly, nothing beats it. So,
is that
apart from a tetanus jab?
Yeah, I was just about to say, is that after you catch your hand and have to have a tetanus jab?
Yeah, no. Well, I get back from church on Sunday and I give my car a wipe down, and I'm a happy man. And then I just listen to Radio 4.
Dealership now?
No, they don't open on Sundays. In fact, the nearest dealership now for Scoobs is about 1,000 miles away. I have to venture the far side of Swindon. And if anybody's watched Game of Thrones, think of it as the north.
How many Subaru dealers are actually left in the UK?
I don't know, but the nearest to me is Simpsons, which is kind of halfway between Swindon and Reading. But I don't need dealers because I can fix most of it myself, or I have a man called Kevin who can fix the stuff I can't. And generally speaking, a hammer and a set of screwdrivers, you can do anything.
You know what is quite interesting, though? All 3 of us have said wax.
Exactly. Wax for fun. Which
strange is that? And all of our customers, we recommend coatings.
I wouldn't necessarily say we recommend them to all customers.
Well, the majority. If a customer comes
I use wax, I know I'm going to be constantly doing this into my car, and I'm going to be needing to use it for training. I actually want it to be scratched up every now and then, so I can show people how to remove those scratches. So putting a ceramic coatings on there is a little bit self-defeatist.
Well, that's why you moved to South Cerney, wasn't it?
Why did I move to South Cerney?
So that your car can be regularly scratched, so you can then demonstrate how it can get fixed.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's nice being able to take the odd handbag scratch out of there, the odd cigarette burn out of plastic trim. It's a fantastic neighbourhood.
Parking Wars 2020.
Yes.
Funnily enough, though, the Seat's actually got ceramic coating on it.
Well, half of it has,
Oh,
hasn't it?
hang on a minute. We don't need to get into that.
No.
Well, my bonnet has got ceramic coating on it.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not exactly
We
sure
don't know where anymore.
It's that good.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. I think I've always wanted to wax cars in the summertime. I've always enjoyed it.
It might be a nostalgic thing, because I mean, I'd still got my original Maguire's NXT wax that I bought.
That was brilliant.
That was NXT 2.0.
It's the smell of Vauxhall performance shows around the country.
Yes. Well, that and the sort of deodorant you get in prison.
The smell of...
Was it green apple? Was it like green apple smell?
What, NXT?
Yeah.
No, it just smelled of NXT.
Yeah, it was a unique smell.
unique...
It tasted like green. It tasted like cooking apples. As opposed to green apples.
It tasted like eye twitch.
Tastes like ouch.
I don't know if it is nostalgic. If it was nostalgic, then I'd be out there, frankly, putting on something like SRB, which is what I used to put on a Fiesta when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
The smell of that brings back some memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The smell of it and the arm ache when you've left it in the sun for 30 seconds too long and you have to chisel it off.
It's the residue around the rubbers that always
and then
irritated
blow all
me.
the dust out of the rest of the car.
Mouthful of dust.
But
you do end up looking like you've done it in a snow globe.
Or you've been antiqued.
Well, back in the day, I remember if I'd had a good week at work, financially speaking, I'd go and treat myself to Maguire's. If it had been a so-so week, I'd go and treat myself, and this is literally just popping down Halfords, I'd go and get something auto glimmy, and if it had been really crap, I'd get some screen wash from Comma or something. But
I remember when my mind was blown from walking into Halfords and seeing Zymol on the shelf. And I got the Zymol shampoo that smelled of coconut. Do you remember that? Zymol shampoo, and they had their cleaner wax,
the
wasn't
seal conditioner as well.
Yeah.
Not actually for seals, but for rubber seals. So
seals, yeah.
I got kicked out of
out of the Arctic.
of the Southend aquarium for that.
Yeah, there's Zymol on the shelf in Halfords, and the shampoo was fantastic. Smelled great. The cleaner wax, absolute nightmare. I think at the time I had a... Oh God, what car was it? I think I had a old man pyjama blue Rover 216 GSI. Automatic, blue leather.
Nice.
And it used to leave horrendous dark patches all over it. Didn't matter how you did it. And I think in the end, the fix was to apply it, buff it off, and then mist water on, and then buff it with water. Do you remember doing shit like that? Swears,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh.
No swears.
No swears.
No swears,
Naughty.
sorry.
Into the jar.
Or doing it with a slightly damp foam applicator.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
foam applicators. Remember them.
I think some of the AGs still say
okay,
that.
but going back to the wax, if you walk into the workshop now, wax a car, you open the cupboard, what wax do you pick out?
Oh.
I know it's a bit of an on-the-spot question.
Yeah,
but
it's-
Depends on the car.
No, he doesn't
No.
put it on the car.
Okay.
For me, and I have always been a strong advocate for Dodo juice, but there has to be two for me.
Me
There
too.
has to be two. So my all-time favourite, and I have to say this, my all-time favourite has got to be Swiss Wax Onyx. It smelled incredible. I think it was mangoes. It went on like butter, and it buffed off incredibly well. It was slick, it was shiny, it was really hydrophobic. It didn't last very long, but it was just such a joy to use. Second to that, I think my all-time favourite wax has to be Supernatural Hybrid. I think for what it gives, the cost of it, the application, I don't think that there's any competition out there, for me personally.
Yeah, I'm going to agree on the... Well, again, I've never personally had tins of Swiss Wax because I never spent that much money on stuff. For me, it was Dodo juice was as high as I was going to go, and it has to be said on a car like if I was doing my parents' car, it would be SNH, it would be Supernatural Hybrid, easy to go on, really lasted well. But on my own pride and joy, on Fritz, the big black German Audi, it's always Purple Haze. And it doesn't last as long as the other ones. It's by no means a perfect wax. It's old school, but it's just what I enjoy using, and it's kind of become a tradition.
It is a really good wax, though.
Yeah.
Again, at the risk of this becoming a Dodo juice circuit, then it's me for a hard wax. Paste wax is going to be hard candy.
Yeah.
Love the stuff, love the smell.
I used to put that on my
For
whitey
generic
30.
work though, it's Colonnade 845 still.
Yeah.
845's the paste wax, yeah?
The liquid
It's
wax.
a liquid wax.
Oh, see, I don't think that's a wax. We've had this conversation before.
It is a liquid.
It's a wax.
It calls itself a liquid
just
paste
is- it
wax.
just is.
It's a polymer. It's a polymer. It's not made out of
Well,
carnauba wax.
all right, Supernatural Hybrid then.
Well, that's
exactly the same.
Because
it's got car labour in it as well.
Yeah, but that is a wax.
I think Collar 845 is closer to an actual wax than any of the hybrids.
I'm going to go wild and say 915 Concours d'Elegance wax as well is rather good from Collar.
Or P222.
P222 was fantastic.
Yeah. For a show wax, I mean, if you wanted it to last more than the weekend, then you're out of luck.
I think somewhere... Oh, do you know what else was really good? Do you remember Natty's paste wax?
Oh, yes. Chemical Guys Butter Wax.
Yeah, Butter Wet
Butter Wet Wax.
Butter Wet Wax. Black Hole.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. But in fact, do you know what? This reminds... I'm going to have to go... when I get back up north, I'm going to have a look through my box.
On next week's trip down Nostalgia Lane.
I've got a 50-gram R222, nearly untouched. I've got the remainder of some Natty's paste wax. That's what I used to slather all over my BMWs at shows. And I've got all of the Dodo juice waxes, because we used to be Dodo authorised. But you'll have to dig it all out, have a look, have a play. So, what have we been up to recently, car-wise? Anything dramatic happening, detailing or anything like that?
Well, not detailing related, but the other working car in the household that's not mine is a Peugeot Expert L2 TP disabled conversion vehicle that we use to move dogs around. Long story, don't ask.
Have you been taking the water out of the rear tail light?
No, I'm still keeping that in there because I'm starting to see...
The fish would die otherwise.
Well, I was worried. It was Daphnia that I've got growing in there, and a bit bloodworm. But we've got a slight mystery. The power steering on those vehicles is a hybrid between electric and hydraulic. And when I got it, the pipe had burst and fluid was going everywhere, and it's bright red. And I remember my partner came back and said, the steering's really heavy. And I was like, yeah, you're just being a bit pathetic. And
I wouldn't do the impressions if I were you. I think she may actually listen to this.
I don't.
Oh, no, carry on then, by all means.
10 minutes into the first video we did 2 years ago, and that's it. But no, and it started bleeding all over the place. So I bravely, at about 7 o'clock at night, on a hell of a gale, there was a storm, lightning, thunder, and gremlins. And I went to Halfords and got some new power steering fluid, put that in, felt very proud and manly. Came back in about 5 minutes later and noticed that it was all over the driveway because it had just gone straight through the system. So anyway, we had those pipes fixed. New from Peugeot was about 600 quid, so we just fixed the existing ones. I say we, it was just one other bloke called Alex. Thank you very much, Alex. And then it's also dropped a bit of oil and we fixed the sump plug. So it theoretically is completely watertight. Problem is, every time I move it on the driveway, there is a large patch of something, and I've licked it, I've sniffed it, I've touched it, I've put it in my eye, and I can't tell if it's PAS fluid, if it's engine oil, if it's tranny juice. I just don't know.
That sounds disgusting. Don't ever use that phrase again.
Really? I quite like. It's all mineral. It's kind of anyway.
Transmission fluid is the correct phrase.
Okay, I like tranny juice.
I don't want to know. Whatever you go into
fair,
at the weekend.
that is on his Grindr profile.
It is, yeah. Does this smell like Rehypnol to you?
Got me kicked out of Halfords twice. But anyway, so that's the mystery at present, is that it is emitting a juicy fluid of some description, and I don't know what. The steering still works, the engine still works, 2 litre HDI, 120 PS for the win, and at some point it's going to break down, and seeing as I seem to be the only one driving it around at the moment, helping people moving house, I don't know which road I'm going to break down on. All I know is that there's going to be a road and I'm going to break down on it. So that's the update from the world of Bert.
So, what's your old habits?
yeah, business as normal.
A5, I think the only thing I did was just before into lockdown, I stuck a Accumate charger in there because the battery tends to just drain out for absolutely no reason. I say no reason, I think it's probably because the dash cam I put on there has a drip feed and takes it down to 11.6 volts every time. So I put the trickle charger on there, thinking I'll be leaving it outside at work for the next few months, and so that was great for a couple of weeks, and then I got bored of driving my girlfriend's Renault Capture around, so I went and dumped that at work, and the Audi's been at home ever since. So it's been getting weekly runs to and from Asda. Only other thing is
your journey time is reduced to Asda. I heard you can now make it in 6 minutes.
No, not the distance I travel to it. It's a really long way actually. I have to go all the way down the bottom end of the M4, all the way back up again, and then one more two of those little
It's
laps.
that one-way system. It's an absolute pain.
Oh, if you miss the turning.
Yeah, loops you around Bristol.
So that's why you have to put your foot down just to make up the time a little bit.
Yeah, that'll set up and cool.
Only other job is the thing I've been waiting to do for ages is get the wheels refurbed, because just before I bought it, the guy managed to put both passenger side wheels straight into a curb.
It looked like he'd done a Dukes of Hazzard over a roundabout.
Yeah,
in that thing.
I think so. So those need to be refurbed. A couple of new Pilot Sports I'm looking to get on there. And probably the tracking redone as well at some point.
Yeah.
Really should get that looked at. But yeah, maybe when I take the wheels off for the post-winter clean.
Well, you don't like your wheels or your tyres, so we're just going to have tyre chat with Bert and Ian. James and I both agree about what the best tyre is.
I'm going to say you're thinking Contis.
No,
they're the ones you've got on it.
Yeah,
I haven't got
exactly.
Contis on there.
No, you
You've
haven't.
got,
Good,
Eagle
yeah,
F1s?
You've got Eagle
No.
F1 GS3s.
They're appalling.
They're
On that
awesome.
car, on that car they're appalling.
I run them on my leggy and they're
Yeah,
brilliant.
but you don't run it on a Quattro.
No, but I had them on. Well, yeah.
They,
You're right.
They do not have the grip for that car.
I
Hence
had
why I'm looking
them.
at Pilot Sports.
I had them on my Mark 5 GTI, and they were awesome.
I had Toyota R1 proxies on my MGF.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Doesn't
I-
mean I'm going to put R1 proxies on a
that's
Quattro.
I had those on a
A5.
Hawkeye and Pretzer, and I bloody loved those.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
I've had Sport Maxes. Sport Maxes
SP
on
Sport Max are brilliant.
yeah on my Mini. Absolutely untouchable.
Very
Not
good
on
tyre for
D2
Audis.
Audi, so I
Light-
bought an
but a
Audi.
lightweight car,
I
and
will-
that's where they excel.
I will argue the fact that they're no good on a D2 because when my dad had a D2 4.2 Sport, he was going through Pilot Sport 2s like there was no tomorrow, and he switched to Dunlop SP Sport Max, and they were incredibly good.
But Pilot Sport 2s and 3s were renowned for absolutely burning through. Pilot Sports 4s.
Well, they're egging. That was the problem we had because the S-line suspension on the D2 combined with the 20-inch forged alloys, there's no give, so the tyres just get bubbling. But the PS4 is supposed to be a very good tyre, actually.
Yeah, the only other ones are going with the Conti Sport 5s.
The only thing I don't like about Conti Sports is that they only give you half a tyre. So the shoulders are almost worn. The Bridgestone Pretenders, as I call them, are the same. You get them with like 6.5
Which
mil-
Pretenders? There are so many variants.
Well, the ones that BMW came with on the the stock
SO
numbers.
Or
Not the SO ones,
RE40s.
RE40s?
They could be SO. Actually, Scoobs came with RE40s, which were
I think they were
rubbish.
RE90s or something. But yeah,
RE70s are good.
But yeah, as far as cars go, I've managed to recommission Percy Pig.
Percy Pig, your Peugeot 306 race car?
Percy Pig, the track car, is running again. Does smell a bit like fire inside. I don't like to leave the battery connected when I'm not looking at it, so I'm not sure it's 100% back together, but it does run, and I have driven it around a closed industrial estate, and it moves.
Well, you sent me a naughty video of that, and it does sound very fruity.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get that on the road in time for more relaxed driving.
Well, the hope is that you get Percy Pig sorted, I'll get Uncrashable 2 rebuilt, and then we can go and do track days, and we're just down from Castle Combe. You can more or less smell tyre burning when it comes to Castle Combe from where we are now.
Not at the moment, though.
Not at the moment, because they ain't doing nothing. And I happen to know the guy who runs the events there, Tom, so we may well be able to get in and have some wild times in our race cars.
We could convince Ian to get an MGF trophy.
You don't need to
be fun.
convince me to get an MGS trophy. I just need somewhere to put it. But I'm more than happy to bring the Renault Capture down to the track and give you a pasting.
Well, we need to get home.
1.5 DCI, baby.
We do need to get home afterwards. So
Well, no, you see, I've got a cunning plan. Is we used to have a big 3.5 ton box trailer, which I've sold, but is if we get a transporter, I can tow Uncrashable 2 behind either Fritz or Vod or Boris.
Oh, so you'll have all of your broken cars in one place.
Well, no, because I can only tow with one car and then
Well, no,
tow
'cause-
there. But I can basically, I've got 3 tow cars, and they can all take just about. Boris is a bit shaky, but they can all just about take the weight of a Scoob and a flatbed and a spare pair of tyres. So we can go reliably. Well,
The A5 will tow.
it doesn't have a knob.
Well, it's
I'm
one
driving.
idiot.
Oh.
Right.
That's the end.